So the Arizona Cardinals have gone for 2 last night. All right, so last night, Thursday Night Football, fun game. Arizona Cardinals, Seattle Seahawks come back from the Cardinals. So the Cardinals were getting dominated during the game, and they had a miraculous comeback at the end, including a bunch of heroics on 4th down and all kinds of stuff from Kyler Murray. And we were in a situation where they could have gone for 2, decided not to. Seattle ended up kicking a field goal, making the decision kind of pointless anyways. But I want to talk through, because it's early in the season, this will come up a lot. So I want to show you how you can kind of figure out if a team should go for 2, what's the actual probability, what's the actual math behind it. And this is going to be some kind of back of the napkin math. We're going to keep it super simple. We're not going to get, too, we'll go down some rabbit holes, but it's not going to be too bad. It's something you can do real quick, sitting at the bar, with your friends watching a game, and sound smarter than you probably are. All right, here we rhymed, like Dr. Seuss. Okay, so here's the situation. So it's 20-6, all right? All right, so first let's take a look at the actual 2-point decision. All right, so it's 20-13 at the time. There's 28 seconds left. Arizona scores. The decision now is, do you go for 2 and try and quote-unquote win it, or do you play for overtime, basically? All right? Now, 2 years ago, 5 years ago, before the kickoff change, 28 seconds is probably the amount of time where it's like, all right, yeah, sure, go for 2. In today's NFL, I don't know if 28 seconds is short enough to go for 2, because the touchback rule. Now the other team, there are two sides to this. The touchback rule / the new kickoff return rule makes it to where the 35 or the 40, like what happened in this game, is way too close to field goal kickers' range now. And their range has been increased because now field goal kickers are allowed to have the ball. So they're allowed, and what I mean by that is they can use the actual game ball they use is basically a worn ball that they've used, or they've got to their liking throughout the day. It used to be like kicking balls were kicking balls. You got like a fresh ball, whatever, and you had to hit that. Pat McAfee is on record this year as saying that adds 10 to 15 yards to a range. On top of that, field goal kickers are just getting better, or getting more powerful in general. I mean, I remember it wasn't too long ago where a 50-something yard field goal was long. Now, a 55-yard field goal is basically a chip shot. Now, 60-plus is considered long. So, because of that, it's too easy, I think, for the other team to go down and kick a field goal with 30 seconds left, 45 seconds left, or whatever. I would say somewhere in the neighborhood of 10 seconds, maybe like 13, let's just say 15. 15 and under, I think you can say, all right, this is basically for the win. Certainly, if there's 5 seconds or less, or 10 seconds or less, like, okay, if it's for the win. That's really how you determine the back half of this equation is, are you actually risking it to win the game? Are you actually flipping a coin, basically, to win the game? So, but that's not really what's happening with 30 seconds left. The real issue here, and what we're really going to talk about, is when they scored here. Okay, so it's, man, the Dunkin' Donut ads are out of control. All right, so right here, the Cardinals score to make it 20-12. Or they score a touchdown. They have the extra point incoming. They are currently down 14. Okay, so in order to win this game, you have to score twice. You have to score 2 touchdowns. Okay, so let me show this card that I've done on the screen. So this is implied probability. This is how you do implied probability, and the easiest way to do it is before the game. Okay, so this is the formula is the odds. So you take, and this is for favorites. So you take the favorite, all right? So in this game, Seattle was minus 120. You take the odds, then you divide that by the odds plus 100, okay? So 220 in this case. And then you times it by 100 to get the percentage. So Seattle, before the game, the implied probability was 54.54%. Keep on going, keep on going, keep on going. So just to make it easy, flip all that around. Arizona has a 45% chance to win the game before the game, all right? Now, at this point right here, actually before this, they showed it on the screen. Arizona had a 3% chance to win. All right. So keep that in the back of your head while you're doing the rest of this. Now, a 2-point conversion historically is successful at about 50% of the time. All right. So you have to score 2 touchdowns to win this game, right? It's 20-6. So you're going to have 2 opportunities to go for 2. And if you know that a 50% success rate is what a 2-point conversion is, and you have 2 shots at it, you can basically assume that you are going to get it 1 out of 2 times. That's what 50% is, right? So the first one is a free roll. The first one is if you miss it, then you would assume mathematically you'll make the second one, right? It doesn't always work out like that, I know, but in the long term, whatever. We're just doing basic math. So what happens if you make it, though? If you make the first one, then most importantly, that an extra point wins the game, okay? And if you don't make it, then you also know what you'll do on the second one. There is no decision anymore. You go for 2 because now you have to go for 2 to tie it. So the first one becomes, like I said, a free roll. This is where the Cardinals should have gone for 2. This was the mistake, all right? Because by not going for 2 here, now you give yourself a decision on the second one, but now it's also 50%, whereas you would rather have 2 shots at a 50% play versus 1 shot at a 50% play, okay? So if you are down 2 touchdowns late in a game, because another part of this too is the math doesn't work out this way if the other team can keep scoring. So you wouldn't do this in like the third quarter. If you're down 2 touchdowns in the third quarter, you're just playing the game. But with 5 minutes left, all right, the other team can't score. If the other team scores, we don't have enough time after this play. So you're thinking, we score here, we stop them, we get the ball, okay, right? With this time, down 14, you absolutely go for it. You absolutely go for the 2-point conversion to either be down 8 or be down 6, okay? Right here, like we talked about, when you're down, when it's 20-20, I don't think, right, where are we at? Right here, when it's 20-20 with 28 seconds left, I don't know if that's the appropriate time to go for it. Now, the other question you could have is with Seattle. So should Seattle have been calling timeouts differently to maintain a certain amount of time on the clock? That also is interesting because if you're Seattle, similar to what we talked about with the 28 seconds, let's pretend Seattle has 30 extra seconds left. Let's pretend that they already used a timeout and they preserved 30 seconds during the red zone situations. I don't know if you want that necessarily. I don't know. Now, in Seattle's case, it was a little different because they basically kicked it on first down. They got a first down here, and then Kubiak decided to run it and decided to run it to set this up instead of taking a shot. They got the first down with JSN, and then they decided, so this is the play. They get the first down, they call a timeout, then they run the ball, set up the field goal. That's how it all plays out. But, so they could have extended the drive a little bit, I guess, if they had 30 more seconds, got a little closer. But if they had 50 seconds, right, here, when they're kicking, let's just pretend like it's fourth down or whatever, and they have 35 seconds. All of a sudden now it's like, well, damn, that's a lot of time for Arizona because what we talked about the kickoff rule. So the new kickoff rule has really changed a lot of like the game theory and stuff like that with the time. How much time do you actually need to get in a field goal range, especially depending on your kicker? I mean, if you're like Dallas, you're thinking we need 2 plays. Not even. We need a first down. We need a first down. We're in field goal range, from a kickoff. Now, this one was different because Arizona tried to squib kick it. So Arizona scores, and they try and squib kick it, and the squib kick, there was a penalty. So Seattle starts off on the 40. Now, the squib kick is absolutely the correct thing to do here because you want the worst starting spot for the kickoff returner, which is fielding like a knuckle puck or a line drive or whatever. The last thing you want to do is just kick it to them, like just a normal kickoff return. 2, you want them to burn clock. So the best case scenario would be they field a line drive, they return it to like the 23, 24, whatever. They return it short of the 35. 35 is a touchback, and they burn 10 seconds or so off the clock. Now the ball skipped before the landing zone, so Seattle got the ball to 40-yard line. Again, like think about that. All of a sudden, the 23, 28 seconds doesn't matter at all, because if they get 15 yards, it's on, right? Like 23 seconds, or it's 28 seconds. This is second down. But 28 seconds with a timeout when all you need is a field goal might as well be an entire quarter, right? Which is why the 2-point conversion when Arizona scored, that didn't matter, because even if they go for 2 and get it, this exact situation is the same. In 30 seconds is a whole lot of time with a timeout for a team that just needs a field goal, right? So, but less time, like 15 seconds, 10 seconds or so, I think you definitely, the 2-point conversion's in play. But everyone's talking about the second touchdown. The conversation really should be that first touchdown. That's where you should go for 2. So keep that in mind when you're watching the games. Down 14 late in a game where you got to have a stop. Basically, you got to score twice to your opponent scoring 0 times. Always go for 2 the first time. Always. One more thing I like to do, ladies and gentlemen, in these situations and exercise, this is like a poker strategy, but always ask yourself, what does your opponent want you to do? I guarantee you, if you asked Seattle, hey, do you want Arizona to kick these extra points or go for 2? I guarantee you they would have said, we want them to kick an extra point. We want the game to be tied. We don't want a play. We don't want basically a 3-yard play to decide this game. We're reeling right now. Arizona's got momentum, whatever. We will take our chances in a tied game. The longer the game goes, we think we're going to win because we're the better team, right? From the implied probability. We have the longer the game goes, the more it's going to favor the higher percentage team, okay? So Arizona did exactly what Seattle wanted them to do, which in poker, you always want your plays to make your opponent do something they don't want to do, right? Like if they're always doing what they want to do, then you're on the back foot. So sometimes a decision can just come down to that. Like, okay, like 4th and inches. 4th and inches, middle of the field. What do you think your opponent wants you to do? They want you to punt. They don't want you to go for it. If you go for it and they get a stop, then cool. But they always would rather you punt. They always would rather say, you know what, take the variable out of it, take the play out of it, just punt me the ball. All right, so that's another way to kind of think like, all right, what's my opponent hoping? Now, if it's like 4th and 9 and you're on your own 20, your opponent's like, go for it. I hope they go for it. Because if they don't get it, we have the ball in the 20. And if they do get it, who cares? We still have the whole drive to go. So it works in that way too. It's not always just go for it, right? Sometimes your opponent is saying, yeah, let it rip, go for it, cool. If you can kick a 61-yard field goal or punt, sometimes your opponent's thinking, like a 61-yard field goal, if you are down 3 and your opponent can either kick a 65-yard field goal or punt, you would rather they attempt a field goal. Because if they don't get it, you have an incredible field position. And if they do get it, you're only down 6. You're still down a score, right? You were down 1 score. Now you're down 1 score again. But the risk of them missing it is worth it for you, okay? So always factor that into what does your opponent want or not want you to do, and factor that into your decision-making as well. All right, ladies and gentlemen, a little bit of math there for you, a little bit of GTO, if you will. Let me know in the comments below if you learned something, and I will see you in the next video.